morning, everybody. I'm CJ Nord, founder of Supply Chains for Good, protectors of children and family prosperity. Those two things, the protection of children and family prosperity, are the foundation of building an invincible supply chain. And today we're going to see how that can be achieved. I spent 30 years running manufacturing supply chains, most of that in this industry that I love so much, woodworking. Now, there's a lot of manufacturing people in here right now. So let me ask you this. Has anybody else ever seen a plant manager point at like steel or something valuable in the dumpster and holler, "There's cash in that trash"? I have. I think we work for that same guy. That's where the program name comes from. There's cash in that trash. This program creates value for wood waste by converting it into energy and other marketable byproducts. Essentially, we're converting wood waste into opportunity. There's nothing new about the concept of turning trash into cash. The metals industry serves as a perfect example of a profit-driven circular supply chain. Metal scrap is routed back into manufacturing stream consistently because everybody makes a little bit of money for their efforts, right? And that money comes from trade, not from taxes. And that's the key. Once all parties are making a profit, supply chains just flow. Creating circular supply chains is a huge undertaking, and it's only possible through industry-level leadership. It's too big of an undertaking for single companies to take on. It has to be an industry-wide coordinated effort that begins with the manufacturers figuring out what can be made from the industry waste that improves profitability. Now, profits get a lot of bad PR, but profits equal paychecks, right? Profits feed families. That's how we pay our rent. They support family prosperity. Today we'll be going through a few slides to explain the program and our progress, and then we'll have a panel discussion with our two distinguished guests, Robert Pelletier, President and CEO of Pacific Hardwood, and Ted Miyashiba, USC School of Engineering and Principal at the Aditi Group. Both gentlemen have been involved in this program since the beginning a year ago, and achieving what we have would have been literally impossible without them. We'll take short questions throughout the presentation, and then at the end we should have a good 10 or 15 minutes for open discussion. Okay. Now, the concept of circular supply chains, and for that matter, supply chain in general, can be a little hard to understand. So let's take a moment to talk about where we're at today and where we want to go on a high level. Our current state is primarily the take, make, dispose cycle, which is also called the linear economy, as pictured on the left. We take from natural resources, make something from it, and then throw the waste away and eventually the product that was made away. Our goal is to implement the circular economy for wood where materials, even composite woods with laminates, are reused for the manufacturing process. As you can see, there's no dispose step in the circular supply chain. You recall me saying that metals gives us a model to follow? In the USA, about 50% of metals gets recycled. 50%. Would anybody here like to take a guess at what percentage of wood waste is recycled in the United States?
5.
It is 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. You know what? In the high school classroom, I would have tossed you a Hot Wheels for that one. Only 5%. We got work to do. Now, I'm a supply chain professional and a supply chain nerd. My peers and I literally built that. We built that. That's our work. I just want to say that the same work that worked to build that is the same work that worked to build that. It's just a supply chain. We need to demystify it a little bit. It's the same work. Okie doke. Stop and think for a second about the scale of this mission. I'm trying to capture the entire United States woodworking industry. The idea that a company could tackle this alone is just plain silly. The whole industry needs to be coordinated together to build the circular supply chain. So how do you shift a whole industry's supply chain? You do that through the industry trade associations. That's what they're there for, to solve the industry's problems and to help it prosper. In the 20th century, trade associations served as the place where the industry got information from. They did their lobbying and they put on events like golf tournaments and trade shows so people could gather. Well, what's the purpose in the 21st century? It's got to be solving 21st century problems. Trade associations are the unifying force for all stakeholders within their industry, and they have the potential to hold a uniquely powerful role in designing and implementing profit-driven circularity. In July of last year, AWFS took a chance on the premier There's Cash in That Trash program to find a profitable use for wood waste. And at that time, we had no idea how we would find a profitable use for composite wood waste. So I want to recognize AWFS for their 21st century demonstration of their value and their mission, because it's their support that got this program off the ground. And I think that we have several AWFS officials with us today. Wade, Mike, and Angelo just walked in. Thank you all for what you've done. Now I'm working to bring at least 4 more woodworking trade associations on board, and if I can do that, I believe that circularity for woodworking is possible inside of 10 years. I believe it's possible inside of 10 years. So now let's talk about what we can make from wood waste. Electricity. We can make electricity, power, out of wood waste. The company producing the wood waste can use it to power their own factory and eliminate their waste disposal and power bills in one fell swoop. We can also, in the near future, produce hydrogen, which sells for thousands of dollars a ton. Another byproduct is biochar, which is so valuable it's been nicknamed black gold. Now, if you remember the Beverly Hillbillies intro, right? In the 20th century, black gold was what we call crude oil, right? Black gold Texas tea. Well, now it's black gold timber tea, right? There's a long list of uses for biochar, including soil amendments. We can make it into graphene that's used in EV batteries, replacing mining. It can be used in lightweight concrete and water filtration. It also has an independent value on the carbon credit market. The process to turn wood waste into energy is called biomass, which heats the wood up and creates the biochar. The heat created in that process can be captured and converted into the electricity to power the factories. This solution keeps trucks hauling wood waste off the road because it's processed right where it's generated. When folks raise environmental concerns about this process, they're typically around air quality, but these systems were actually invented to replace open air burning, and they are fully enclosed clean air systems. There's no need to compromise on being a good environmental steward to increase profits. I've been very stubborn about keeping our feet on the path of purpose, and it led us to the most lucrative solution. I'm an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, so getting this right is a cultural obligation for me that we refer to as being a good ancestor. It's always the right time to do the right thing. I'm sure you've heard that before, but it doesn't necessarily pay. This time, principles led us straight to profits. Pretty sweet. Okay, so I have a very short video it's only 35 seconds, about the biomass process to just help us understand it. Okay, so it heats it up, we heat up the waste, and then that eventually spins the turbine, generates the electricity. And simply put, that's what a biomass reactor does. There are also digesters that do this for animal waste. So here's, I think, a very important point, especially for manufacturing. If the grid goes down, and Ted is going to be bringing us up to speed on some of the risks that we're facing in our power supply. So if the grid goes down, the sun stops shining, and the wind stops blowing, we can still produce electricity. That means that the factory can not only run, keep their orders on time, but then they can also help their community. People are going to keep working, customers are going to be happy, and if they choose to be, they can be their community's power resiliency center, which makes woodworking into kind of a hero. I think that's really possible for us to be perceived that way. Does anybody have any questions? We're just about ready for the panel discussion. No? Okay. Before we go any further, this is one of my favorite things to do, just rat out Barbie. One of the key elements of this program is to develop regional solutions through collaboration to assure that we don't repeat the historic mistakes of the past of shipping trash far away. Because listen, when we ship the trash away, we ship the opportunity away too. Here's one of those historic mistakes. So Mattel, the manufacturer of Barbie, they closed their last United States factory in the late 1980s. Around that time, the United States also started shipping our used plastic containers overseas to China to be recycled into new toys that used to be made in Los Angeles County. And then eventually those toys and the packaging that they came in would be shipped back to the United States where they were thrown away in our own landfills. We literally shipped our trash nearly 8,000 miles to be recycled. And this, oh Barbie, oh my, right? So if the Mattel factory had stayed here, they could be recycling old toys, old yogurt cups, the water bottles into new toys. And I think that's very important for everybody to understand, especially policymakers. Circularity will not happen without manufacturing and without strong manufacturing. Okay. So this is an example of what regional collaboration would look like. Robert, your factory is in that picture. This is a small region, just really a small region of Southern California. One factory producing wood waste into energy eliminates 800 truck trips a year. That's Robert's factory. When you come up and do it, that's eliminating that many truck trips. Within this region, if we get all of these factories, which is just a small amount, we can eliminate 6,500 truck trips a year and free up enough power to power 1,000 homes. It's an astonishing amount of impact. And if the grid goes down, the factories are still producing power and shipping their orders on time. One of the things that I love about this industry is their love of children. So last slide, last but not least, in keeping with this industry's history, we're also helping develop partnerships between manufacturers and skilled trade education. So educational programs like LA's own Rediscover Center that's shown here get material from manufacturers that was just going to be thrown away, just excess inventory and scrap. And then that box of smokers up there, that's the solution that Robert's son came up with to turn your scrap into cash, right? And it sells on Amazon. And with that...
Please order.
Yes, please order. Please order. It ships on time. We were just talking about that. It ships on time. If it arrives late, it's UPS. Okay. I got to take a second to brag about these two guys. First, affectionately known as Coach Ted May Shiba, has had an illustrious career in operations and supply chain. I'm going to read you his bio, but it doesn't even begin to tell you how impressive this guy is. He teaches at the Iribe School of Engineering at USC. That's the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. He's also a partner in a DT, that's a managed service providers within industries concerned with maintaining private data. His experience with supply chain management comes from being a coordinator of special orders for vehicles like police cars and right-hand drive vehicles bound for Japan. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of supply chain coordination for a vehicle with over 10,000 parts. This served him well when he had to develop a weapon targeting system for Bradley vehicles and move the entire supply chain from the West Coast to the East Coast. He had to remodel that supply chain and shift it to the East Coast. Ted says that he enjoys being part of the design of supply chains for good. He's become a very good friend, and he gives all the credit for his great ideas to my dog. He really does. He texts me great ideas, and he goes, Max told me this. Right? The dog told him to do that. The team of engineering students who helped on this project at USC won Best Capstone Project for it. So we've really enjoyed partnering with universities. Robert Pelletier and we used to work together at RSI Home Products, which is now American Woodmark. Robert was the Senior Vice President for Global Operations, and that was a pretty impressive role for such a young gentleman. And it didn't surprise me to see him become the president of his own company, Pacific Hardwood. Pacific Hardwood is the nation's leading manufacturer of custom engineered and solid flooring, as well as molding, stair parts, and other accessories. Pacific Hardwood produces over 3 million square feet annually from their 3.5-acre state-of-the-art manufacturing center in California. Working with Robert, I found him to be fair, helpful, kind, and fun. His engineers had a basketball hoop in the middle of the office. And when I drove into Pacific Hardwood, first thing I saw was a basketball hoop. Like that consistency. Both of these gentlemen are really visionaries, and they are also engineers. Engineers turn visions into reality. After the panel discussion, we'll open up for questions from everybody. So Robert, we're going to start with you. You've written that profit-driven circularity is more than just sustainability, it's smart business. What advice would you give to other manufacturers who still see waste as a cost center rather than a value opportunity?
Well, for me, I'll just share a little bit about what's going on with my business as it pertains to waste. So 3 years ago, waste was a profit center for me. So I was selling my wood curls, I was selling parts of my wood dust, and I was getting kind of the stuff that had plywood and resin in it taken away for free. So we were making, low six figures, just disposing of our waste. About 2 or 3 years ago, it turned into kind of more of a neutral situation where it was this very small cost center, but it wasn't something I really paid attention to much at all because there's 8,000 other things that were much more important. But about 4 months ago, I got shock thrown into my supply chain when a company that I had partnered with for 15 years said, we can't take your waste anymore. So I kind of had to go out there and I got a rude awakening into what it really costs to get rid of waste in a changing environment. So we're manufacturing in Southern California. There's nothing political, but it's probably the worst place in the country to manufacture just from a cost standpoint and an environmental regulation standpoint. So now it's about $250,000 a year cost center. So it went from being a profit center to a neutrality center to a cost center. So at that point in time, I started to really say, okay, we've got to figure this out. Now, CJ and I started speaking. On top of that, electricity, no matter where you are, continues to increase in cost generally. So our electricity costs run a little shy of $500,000 a year, and they've increased about 30% over the last 4 years. So, and I anticipate that continuing to go on. The other thing that's kind of scary is as I scale my business, so Pacific Hardwood's been around since the 90s. I bought it right before COVID, and we've a little over tripled the business in the last 4.5 years or so. So we're at the point now where we need to run at night, and in California, the cost per kilowatt hour quintuples after 4 p.m. So the first time I ran at night for any type of substance, I went from having a $40,000 power bill to a $92,000 power bill. Even though I wasn't doing much at night at all, I thought it was a typo when I got the electric bill. So that was a real rude awakening into what are we going to do here? So kind of to answer CJ's question is, if you're a manufacturer, this is going to impact you in some way, even if it's not now. We know what's going on with inflation and just rising costs across the board. They'll continue to be as the pendulum swings back and forth, which I'm sure it will, politically and macroeconomically. I anticipate those costs continuing to increase, and they can really have a significant and substantive impact on your business. So for me, we've gotten hit pretty good. We've done everything we can to minimize that, but I'd like to take this technology and really help push it forward with the help of CJ's team, the industry professionals here, and hopefully some help from state and local representatives so we can burn the waste, help our competitors, because they're throwing this away too. So CJ had mentioned that It's not just about my factory. So, if I can take their waste where they can give it to me for free, I get free energy at that point. They avoid costs, and everybody wins. So that's kind of, where we're at right now, at least, in my neck of the woods.
In that same term of time when his wood waste recycler had to stop taking loads, and it was really abrupt too, you got 30 days notice? Hardly that.
I got about 12 days.
Yeah. It was
I
like,
stretched into 30.
and the cause of that for the wood waste recyclers, that the municipality came in and said, you got too much. You have too much on the floor. There's no outlet for it. There's no place for it to go and have a value and be used, right? During that same period, another hauler of wood waste increased their rates by over 200%. And I have also just heard here at the show that anybody familiar with Chet Pallets? Chet Pallets is a major pallet manufacturer. Chet Pallets can no longer dispose of their wood waste. The municipalities around their factories have said, I'm sorry, we're not taking it anymore, it's your problem. Now, so it's like overnight, it's changing, and taking businesses by surprise. So, Robert, you had said the future belongs to people who can repurpose what others discard. And I just want to quote you again. It's only waste if you waste it. That's right? What new partnerships or business models do you think are possible when manufacturers begin to collaborate instead of compete on waste solutions?
Well, something that came about, working together on this waste project is we've worked with what I would consider competitors, directly with me in the field, and it got us talking about what each of us are good at. So a lot of times you have a competitor and you feel like, okay, I've got to go to war with this person and I need to win this battle. There's certain things that we're excellent at, and there's other things that, frankly, I don't really want to do, but that were necessary evils. So in discussing kind of your global opportunities and challenges in your business, you're able to partner with people that are either, ancillary or tangential to what you're doing, or maybe you're directly competing with you in some areas, but they could use some help of doing things that you're really good at, and you can get some help from them. So for me, a good example of that would be, I don't really want to make stair treads, but we were doing it. But there's a company locally that's very good at that. That's what they're set up for. And they have opportunities to move custom wood flooring. So it's led to some good relationships. And those relationships lead to more discussions about the challenges we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And that helps build local momentum that we can take to the state and local government, et cetera, to try to get some more visibility and potentially some financing or subsidies for what we're trying to do.
It's very beneficial for businesses to remove the silos, talk to each other and learn from each other, even if you are competitors. It's really very beneficial. One of the other things that came up was that opportunity to put in EV charging structure for industrial fleets. So that just kind of came about in being part of this ecosystem of people who are trying to convert waste into energy. Your article very powerfully compares biomass energy to personal transformation, burning old patterns to fuel new. How has this philosophy helped you lead Pacific Hardwood through tough and uncertain times? You went right through COVID right after you bought it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very big on self-improvement. So I have 3 children. They're 16, 14, and 12. And it took me about 40 years to really kind of get my act together the way I wanted to have it together. So I'm trying to impart that on them. So if any of you are interested, I write a lot of articles. I don't want to plug too much here, but you can find them at Official Robert John. We'll be launching something this fall called Elevate Your Life, and LIFE stands for, LYFE is Living Your Fulfilled Existence, and there'll be a YouTube component of that that's called The Millionaire Tradesman. So I grew up in a little town in upstate New York, and my mom waited tables, and my dad was a plumber, and as I've had the good fortune and blessing and luck to become successful, I've helped a lot of people that I grew up with in a little town there. And there's a lot of people that are in trades, so a lot of people in here are in the trades, right? And the trades are not really thriving right now. If you're in the trades, you're thriving. So I can tell you that when we try to find people to work in our factory, it's a nightmare to try to get anybody, even third parties that are booked up for weeks. So we want to reach out and really help people that are interested in growing within a trade, build and grow. But back to waste in that article, I feel strongly that we all have waste in our lives, and it could come in a lot of different ways. You could have poor nutrition, you could drink too much, you could have other ancillary habits that are really holding you back. And that trash can be turned into cash in your own life. So I'll speak for me. I've had periods in my life where I've drank way too much. I wouldn't say alcoholically, but I realized that there's not really a home for that in my life. It's a little trash that I kept letting come into my world. So I've been able to turn that into cash in a lot of ways. Freeing up hours of productivity in a day, or even just the cash of going out here, there, and everywhere, and investing in the business and being present. So I think if you learn lean manufacturing, there's the 8 wastes. I won't go through all of them now. But we all have waste in our lives, so how do we turn that waste or that trash into cash that doesn't have to be financial? It can also be good habits and structures that are able to make you to be the best parent, worker, leader, person.
One of the things that I want to acknowledge Robert for is that he hires from an addiction recovery program. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, we partner, we're corporate sponsors of a company called Hope Builders. So what Hope Builders does is it takes people who had a poor start in life. Maybe they got pregnant at a young age, or they were gang members, or they came from an abusive home, or they just never really received any support. And they have tools, and they have a school basically, that teaches them not just trades. They do plumbing, carpet, electrical, but they also set people up to work in hospitals as medical transcriptionists or x-ray technicians, etc. So we're really trying to give back to the community and see how we can get people involved in these trades, whether they're working with their hands or their brains, to be able to kind of learn, grow, and scale. And selfishly for us, in the factory, I don't know how it is where you guys are, but finding people in Orange County, California that want to be in a factory at 4:45 in the morning to work in the heat all day, it's not great. So Hope Builders, they have very stringent requirements to move through that program. So when you hire somebody out of there, excuse my language, but they have their shit together. Like they've gone through this program and they're really trying to do something with their lives, and they're going to be reliable and move forward. So there's some good symbiosis there.
Yeah. When you walk through his factory, this is how I can tell if somebody really is a nice guy and a good leader. All of the employees say hi. They stop to give him a fist bump. You see, it's hard to hide stuff like that, right? Now, last question for you. You outline a blueprint for circular thinking that applies to both manufacturing and life. How can leaders encourage their teams, not just their systems, to think this way? How do you encourage your teams to think that way?
Well, I think all thinking should have some circularity to it, right? So when you're busy running your business every day, or your team is busy executing their functional area, there's 3 parts of business. There's working on the business, there's improving the business, in the business, the day-to-day nonsense that we all have to put up with, which we all have. Improving the business, just taking and making incremental steps forward to try to look at little waste things here and there. And then really working on the business, and that's where the circular thinking comes in. And that's where programs like yours, help us excel, where we can really kind of get up there at 30,000 feet and take a look at not just what are we doing here in my little 3-acre facility at Pacific Hardwood, but how do we make an impact, more at least locally and regionally, and then hopefully this can take off, nationally, and we can really see a transformation in what goes on.
Yeah. It's critical to get above the problem, right? Do you want to add anything before we switch over to Ted's part?
No, I think we'll have some Q&A at the end, right?
Okay.
The only thing I would add is that I think this is a big deal. As maybe there'd be a hockey stick curve on it in terms of how it moves forward. And if we're going to manufacture in the United States, we already face a lot of hurdles. So, our employees are more expensive, our insurance is more expensive, our rent's more expensive, our electricity is more expensive. So in order to be competitive, we've got to be better at things that, unfortunately, in other areas of the world aren't a priority. I can assure you in China, they don't really care what's happening with wood waste. They're going to throw it in the ocean, they're going to throw it in a furnace that's 60 years old, or they're just going to dump it somewhere. So we have to be better, smarter, quicker, and it's only going to be by working together that we do that. I don't have the personal bandwidth to fix it myself, so I appreciate the help that you all are giving.
Yeah, it's just, when I was a buyer, supply chain manager, purchasing manager for this industry, I kept thinking about what can I do with this waste, what can I do with this waste? But you're already working 50, 60 hours a week. There's no way for you to squeeze in figuring this out. It's taken us nearly a year of really hard work, a lot of people involved to get to this point. So speaking of people who have helped us so much, we'll move on to Ted. Now, Ted is going to bring us up to speed on what's going on with power systems within the United States. And that brings me to his opening slide, which is hands down my favorite slide in the entire presentation.
So your question was?
So, Ted, share your thoughts, please, on the trend towards the decentralization of power distribution.
Okay.
Okay.
So the image on the left up there is a recently released report by the Department of Energy. Recently, like this month, right? And there, it's a 75-page report, and on the right, I've given you the executive summary. That's it. That 75 pages says, we're in trouble. Next.
Okay.
Fine. Okay. So, primarily the key takeaways from this report are the status quo is unsustainable, and it's something that I've seen for many years. The way the nation looks at grids and grid growth is antiquated at best. It started out when Edison started first electrifying the nation, and they said, well, how much electricity do we need? Well, okay, that's fine when you start small. At some point when you grow, that's unsustainable. The way you look at things, the way we've planned, so grid growth has to match the pace of AI innovation, which is one of the takeaways. And that was really the hockey stick to mirror Robert's analogy there. Really, with AI implementation, we're seeing great demands for electricity, along with a few other things like electric vehicles and the like. Our current plans for increasing the capacity of the grid in the U.S. means that we are at risk of increased power outages by 100 times by 2030.
Oh,
Now,
my.
how do we measure that? Now, what does that mean? How many of you have experienced a power outage from your grid sometime in the last year? Yeah, most of you, okay? And that's normal, right? The government says that's normal as long as you're not losing more than a couple of hours a year on average. So look back on your grid experience for, say, 5 years. And so, have you had an outage every year? Right? Some outage, some hours. Right? So they're saying over 5 years, maybe you've lost 10 hours of grid availability. Right? Multiply that by 100, and that's what we're looking at as a danger of grid unavailability in 2030. That's not happy, right? One of the things that my experience when I was in private industry and as a consultant is all about business continuity. And I can turn to Robert and say, so what happens when your factory goes down for an hour in a day because you have no electricity and the grid has failed you? He goes, refer to the first slide. I mean, it's very disruptive. I mean, you have to spin everything back up again, get it running. It's not easy, right? The planned supply, part of this issue in 2030 is that our plan for increasing our supply for the grid falls very short. And the old tools, which is the way we've always planned for the grid, won't solve the new problems, right? The old saying is if the process, the way you've gotten into this mess is something that you are going to rely on to get you out of the mess, is insanity. Right? That's not gonna work. You're going to have to do something different. So, next.
Okay.
So the trends are AI. AI is a big thing. It's a big consumer of electricity. Electric vehicles, such as they are a big consumer of electricity. Heat pumps. In all your regions, there's usually from your utilities, from whoever's supplying your heating oil or whatever heating system that you got, they're trying to say, go to a heat pump. Heat pumps are pretty good, right? But they're electrical based, right? I mean, there are people friends of mine in Michigan who are going, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Put one of these in, and summer, winter, dead of winter, the house is comfortable. In the middle of July, it's comfortable because the heat pump takes care of everything. Great. And the more of those we put in, the greater load we put on the grid. And there's just industrial electrification. Put in robots, right? Put in any kind of automation in your system. What is it using? It's using electricity. Great stuff, but that adds to the load. So, next slide.
I didn't realize that AI used that much power. I learned that from
This
Ted.
is huge. So this gives you an indication of electrical demand in the U.S. So we're bumping along. We're very happy. We're growing at a couple percent a year. That's great. Now that we've got those trendsetters, AI, data centers, right? This is the projection for electrical need in the country. We can't build it fast enough. Right? That's basically my takeaway. You can't build it fast enough. So if you're in industry, if you have a factory, if you're responsible for that, you're going to have to come up with plan B. There is no way around it. You've got to come up with plan B. So whether that's a battery backup system, whether it's diesel generators, I mean, you're going to say, well, I don't think I want to be like Nigeria, where every house and every factory and every commercial outlet has a diesel generator in the back to continue operations. They got that way because they had a grid that was unreliable. And that's just the facts. That's what we're after. So the processes that CJ has brought on in the project that we've demonstration project that we're trying to get started over at Robert's factory is a step in that direction to take the waste that's there, turning that into electricity. At the very minimum, that's the first step, is to get electricity. The second step is to get natural gas, which will help feed the device, the pyrolysis device that will be used for combustion. Right? The reason why it's possible in Southern California is true combustion. Right? It's not burning, it is combustion. Right? You are taking something in an airless environment and getting full combustion out of the wood so that there are no elements of environmental pollution. It burns completely, or it combusts completely. And that's what you're after. So that's why, even in Southern California, AQMD, all the boards, everybody else out there who work good, say, looks fine to us. This is great. Use that. And use the heat to turn, as the little video showed, use the heat to boil the water, to turn the turbine, to give you electricity. Right? And that, in turn, goes to a battery backup system, which, in Robert's case, at the very beginning, if it's not a one-to-one replacement, will at least knock the peaks off. So he can run after 4 o'clock.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Sure.
So this is kind of the criticality that I see. So as I mentioned earlier, at 4 o'clock, my electricity quintuples. It doesn't just go up 20% or 30%. It goes up 500%. It's over 80 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay, and then when you're driving home, you'll see signs on the highway that say, basically asking you to not use your air conditioning. Right? And then at the same time, we're bringing on all these electric vehicles, as Ted mentioned here. to just tax the grid. So you'll see backpedaling about the electric vehicles, et cetera, because the grid's breaking. But for me personally and selfishly, and for anybody who is running a factory, who here's running a factory or is involved in manufacturing? We have manufacturing. So oh wow, it's half the room. So you can just imagine that as things move forward, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get significantly worse, like he said. And I can't afford $1.5 million power bills, right? I can't be competitive when that's the case. So this is not as he mentioned, Plan B is not an option.
What's the old saying? What happens in California happens in California first and spreads across the nation. We've seen it. We've lived it. We understand it. We now come up with some solutions that we're going to roll out to get to you before it gets to you.
I like that.
That curve up there shows you that it's coming. It's coming for you. You better think about it now.
One thing I wanted to add to that is that often if a municipality is overtaxed, they will shut down the largest power user. Mm-hmm. So factories are sometimes shut down by the utility. Medway Plastics in Long Beach developed their own system to prevent shutting their factory down. So, manufacturing might be hit.
Right. They want the homeowners to be happy. Right? Happy wife, happy life. Anyway, they want the homeowners to be happy because what? Those are the voters. So you keep the voters happy and they shut down the factories. Mm-hmm. A little short-sighted in my opinion, but that's only an opinion.
Yeah. Ted, when you messaged me, Ted messaged me on LinkedIn shortly after the program started last year and an article had been written on it. Can you imagine getting a message from a professor at the USC School of Engineering that said, hey, you got a pretty good idea there. You want some help on it? Oh, hell yes. Oh, hell yes. Not many people understand the role that universities play in innovation, and USC has been helpful to us, so has Oregon State, UC Davis. We have a growing list of universities who are partnering in this. Can you tell us about how universities help with business innovation and how that is of value to multiple stakeholders, including the students? Shall I move on to Tommy Trojan?
To Tommy. Yeah. So I run a capstone course, which is the senior level industrial engineering course at USC. And we are constantly looking for, it's free help. Right? So when I usually go to industry, it's usually people I know that spend a lot of time in industry, and I go to them and say, look, I've got these students who can help you out in my direction. And it's a capstone course, so it takes everything they've learned up to this point academically and asks them to apply that to a problem that you can identify. First of all, don't give me your front burner, I'm on fire, I need to fix this in 2 weeks. No, they'll be overwhelmed, right? So I'm looking for back burner things that you said, that's a problem, but I just can't get to it now. That's what he said. It's an issue, but I've got 600 other things that I have to take care of. So fine, take one of those and go to your university, right? State university, anybody who's got some kind of a program, because they're always looking for this. Lord knows, I'm always looking for it. And in our particular case, it's a one-year program because what we found is students who are coming out have no understanding of finding the root cause of a problem. Right? As a hiring manager for many years, my frustration was I get a new hire and I go, okay, here's a problem, go tell me what you think of it. And they leave. And in the afternoon they come back and say, I've got an answer to the problem. I'm going, no, that doesn't work. So tell me what you've done. Let me see your analysis. Where's the data? Go back out there. Right? And after a couple of months, they figured it out. So that was really the biggest issue. And the first half of the course is really defining the problem, really defining the problem, and then coming up with a solution and then trying to implement that and work with the client. So that's how we do it, and most of the universities throughout the nation do that. So wherever you've got a university close by, regionally is fine. I mean, I've done stuff up in the Bay Area and San Diego and Vegas, and you know, we'll travel with Zoom. It's a wonderful thing, and we do have budget to send the students over to see you. And most of these universities have this as well. I would say that's a wonderful way to get a second pair of eyes and a new perspective on something that's been bothering you, burr under your saddle, to get some problem fixed, something that really bothers you. So that's I think what we came up with here. Had students do some research, guided them toward this paralysis thing, and said, okay, write your requirements and make sure we can make this something that has legs. And they did a pretty good job.
I think so too. One of the benefits that the students get, I work with a lot of students, a lot of kids, so this is important to me that they benefit, is, well, you guys, this is a bunch of manufacturing people here. Who has sweated bullets during a production meeting? Anybody been challenged during a production meeting? You didn't have the right answer or whatever. Production meetings can be really tense, right? They can be really tense. So during one of the meetings, the students didn't deliver a practical set of information for Robert, right? And Robert dealt with them just like an understanding plant manager, but it was, look, manufacturing environments are kind of a little bit like the military. We're on a time schedule, right? You gotta keep moving all the time, and if you try and evade a question during a production meeting, boy, you can get slaughtered. The students had a little tiny taste of that. And I think that prepared them for their careers very well. And we talked about how during, one of the students has gone on to the Navy. He's going to become a pilot. And he talked about how that is practiced in the Navy on murder boards. They're called murder boards. That they really challenge the student, and that's good for them because now they have, it's not, when they go into the workplace, it's not going to be the first time that happens to them.
Right.
So there's quite a bit of benefit to it. Okay.
I think,
Yes?
Robert's got a good point. We have 10 minutes left. Let's ask some questions.
I have
Anything
a quick,
that
real
you
quick
got?
close. It won't be long, and then we'll get right to the question. I just want to share this. For years, I wanted to do something major that uses supply chain to protect the environment and manufacturing jobs. The way I finally got my mind into the right place to solve problems at this scale might sound a little odd. I imagined myself to be the supply chain manager for planet Earth, the whole planet. Right? So I picture in my head, Earth is my full responsibility. That sense of responsibility works like a key to unlock your problem-solving abilities. Imagine you're responsible for the solution, and it unlocks your thinking. Well, you know what? That might sound a little bit crazy, but it's actually the application of one of Eisenhower's principles. What he said is, whenever I run into a problem that I can't solve, I make it bigger. I can never solve it by trying to make it smaller, but if I make it big enough, I can begin to see the outlines of a solution. And if you want to solve the world problems, think like a world leader. When we take our thinking from the individual level, the outlines of solutions materialize and opportunities unfold, and we find that we can develop profitable solutions with benefit not just individual businesses, but whole industries along with communities and the future. AWFS is doing purpose-driven work that makes a difference to the industry they serve and to the world. It gives them something to talk about to elementary school kids, university students, and elected officials. It elevates awareness of our industry in a very favorable light. And that, my friends, is how we can build a real-life supply chain for the greater good that protects children through protecting the environment, and it protects family prosperity through protecting jobs. Now we can open up to questions, and here's our contact information. Yes, Mike?
You've done a great job explaining all the benefits of this process. Can you tell us more, what's the process itself, and what's the investment to get it?
Yeah, okay, good. So I have, over the last year, been sourcing equipment that is smaller and modular. This type of biomass equipment started at kind of the power plant size, $20+ million investment. For a facility that produces between 5 to 40 tons of wood waste a day, and by the way, a 40-yard roll-off has about 5 to 8 tons in it. The equipment ranges from $1 million to $2 million. So you've got about a 1 to 4 year ROI without factoring in the sale of the byproducts, the biochar, and eventually we'll get around to hydrogen too. So the equipment, you feed the wood waste into the biomass reactor, which looks like a ocean freight container, and it processes it through in kind of the same sort of way your oven on self-cleaning cycle does. And then we have the adjacent generator and turbine that generates factory electricity. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Please, thank you.
Sure.
Can I add? The basis of it is pyrolysis, pyrolysis. It takes waste, wood, bio waste, puts it under high heat, between 400 and 600 degrees C, under high pressure, and therefore you get combustion because you have no air in the chamber. So you have no flame. You aren't really burning it, because every time you burn something, that's a very inefficient process. So by being able to put it under high heat and high pressure in a controlled environment, what you get out, and this is how you modify the environment to get the various gases that you want.
So you got a big air fryer.
And were you asking about the practical consideration, like from a financial standpoint as well?
Yeah.
So for our application, it's around $3 million. So that's part of the challenge. So, when I look at investments, generally I want a 1 year payback. On something like this, I'd be okay with 2. I'm looking at about $650,000 in savings. So I can get, on a 2 year, I can get close to halfway there. So CJ's been helpful, and we're trying to really lobby the state and the local governments to pitch in, because they have a problem that needs solving too. So they should participate in part of the solution. So yeah, for my facility, it's about $3 million.
Excuse me. Okay, Robert, so in that ROI, are you considering also the sale of any byproduct that you're going to have through the process?
Not initially, no.
We have not factored that enough, so I'm just using the offsets of waste disposal and electricity. Yeah, not until I have firm numbers on that.
Just the firm numbers I have is what does it cost me to get rid of waste,
Sure.
and how much am I spending on electricity?
Biochar typically sells for about $400 a ton, and some of that value goes to the carbon credit market, but then it has the practical uses in it too. Equipment to create hydrogen from this process is in development right now. It's in design for manufacturability stage, and then I believe that our industry can become a hydrogen producer.
So that would be huge, especially
That's money,
if
man.
you're talking about the state of California. They're in high demand for hydrogen right now.
Absolutely.
You know what, I'll throw some numbers out for that. So the state The state of California would like to have 2 million tons of hydrogen produced a year to meet goals. Presently, we make 700,000 tons a year. The state of California disposes, meaning wastes, about 58 million tons of wood waste a year. That could create 4 million tons of hydrogen. We could solve the
That's
hydrogen
huge.
shortage.
And-
In this industry, could solve the hydrogen shortage.
And what they were talking about, especially, Ted, you said it best, whatever starts in California just moves its way eastward. I mean, there's no denying that. We've seen that over and over. And one last thing I do want to ask, which is a little bit unrelated, speaking with Ted, he's kind of like a futurist, right?
Yeah, he's
So he really is. You know, he's so down
great.
in on all this stuff. But you mentioned AI. With those data centers taking massive amounts of power, right, to operate. Where do you see nuclear energy coming into this whole, not just for the AI portion, but the entire grid? Where do you see that going?
There's a demonstration project currently going on in LA for a mini reactor. Basically, again, the shipping container size, which will generate a few gigawatts, which is enough for a small neighborhood. So if they can get past this test, which is in the next year, they'll go into full production on those. Nuclear energy, where the regulatory is for the U.S., knows about it, understands it, has approved it, so they're well on their way. If they can make this work and everybody's happy with it, it's a couple of grains, literally grains of that material they can use, and you can power a neighborhood.
How about that? Wade, you had a
Yeah,
question?
I got a technical question for Ted, but I'll wait and try to do that later. I'll ask a question that may be appropriate for the group, because obviously not everybody produces that much waste for this, or can they justify spending $2 million or $3 million to put in a system? So what is the solution for all of the smaller shops that don't produce that? Is there an avenue that they can utilize, that they can take advantage of?
My vision in that is through the trade associations, we will develop those collaborations regionally, like we saw on the map earlier. And look, that flat out means me walking up to Drawer Blocks' specialties, right? Bang, 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 bang. Hey, you want to take your wood waste over to Robert's factory that's a block and a half away? Why don't you do that? And handling all of the logistical challenges to get that done, right? So through the trade associations, we can connect surrounding woodworkers so that all the little cabinet shops have an outlet. And literally, we can vertically integrate our waste management into a profit center, industry-wide.
Well, and to suffix that too, I don't generate enough waste to power my facility. So the project doesn't work without what CJ's talking about. So there's 7 or 8 decent scale sized businesses that they don't want to pay to get rid of their waste. So the project doesn't work without that collaboration, for sure.
I just wanted to be that was pointed out
Yeah,
for everybody, not
Sure.
just people.
Yeah, it has to be a team-based approach, so.
And that's a big deal. That is a big deal.
It's a really good deal.
Landfill is getting harder and harder in large metropolitan areas. You've heard about New York getting rid of the stuff by putting their trash onto barges and shipping them off to anybody who will take it. They've taken it down south. It's ridiculous, but that's really where the money is going to be made. There's an example of a Subaru plant in Indiana. They have 0 landfill waste. Okay. Because they take all their organics and they compost it. They take all of their metal, nails, even nails in pallets. They break down all their pallets. They take all the nails out and they recycle the metal and give the wood away to their employees for free. So there are all kinds of weird-looking dog houses and bird houses in that area because all the employees say, great, this is great. I can do this on my spare time. But that's really going to be the future of this, is taking all the waste, anything that you can, because this process will use it, and it's going to be geared to that area. We concentrate on wood because, one, it has a high heat index, energy index. So our return on investment is going to be pretty quick. So that's why I said this is a demonstration project. We will soon go to taking care of the next project, which is whatever you take to the landfill, we can combust.
Eventually you can. Question?
Yeah, and just building on that last question, tactically speaking, is there anything that us smaller shops can start doing now to get involved, or what would our next steps be from here?
I would love
Say,
for
what is it that you
smaller
waste the
shops
most?
to connect to your local wood shop program. Pretty please. And I'd be happy to help with that, with whatever region you're in.
I'm here in Ventura County, so.
Okay, cool. Great. Give me an excuse to come to Ventura County. But that's always there. And, you know, the stuff that your shops might be throwing away, that the kids can practice safe cutting with it. Maybe they can build something with it. What you're paying to throw away, the schools are paying to buy, right? And that also connects school to future employer, right? They're literally practicing on the material that they may go and work and use, right?
Robert, I got a question. Is the state providing you any incentives or tax credits for what you're doing with the energy?
Yeah, so you chime in if you think I'm off base here. So it's been mixed. So we received something called the California Competes tax credit last year. It wasn't based on this program at all, but basically that if anyone's in California, you guys are in Ventura. I was told by my accountant it was a waste of time. I ended up getting $600,000 in tax credits. And it took me like 2 hours. Took me 2 hours using AI to fill out the application. So basically that program, California Competes, is designed to either steal jobs from other states or countries and bring them into California, or stop the exodus of companies from leaving California because of the cost impacts. So the people in that program have been extremely helpful, and like I said, it was $600,000 in tax credits. It's a big deal. Cal recycles, and I didn't really see a lot of traction.
A little weak.
I was very disappointed kind of on the recycling side of things, but the California Competes people are connected with assemblymen and whatnot, so we're trying to push this up the food chain because, you know, as I said earlier, and I think Ted agrees, we're not just solving our problem, they got a problem, right? So they got to figure out a way to fix it too. So if we can be part of fixing it, then they got to compensate us for it.
But ideally, we're building the business case, right? So, you know, that's nice. It's kind of icing on the cake, right? But the business case has to work independently.
I think the challenge really is because unless you've got a nine-figure business, right, these are big investments. So that combination of bolting companies together so that we can figure out a way to do it as a team is one avenue. But I think this is stuff where for most people, it's going to require some governmental help. Just like we're doing with the CHIPS Act and different things like that. We need the government to take this energy issue the same way they're taking the need to build semiconductor chips and whatnot here. It's a similar type of problem in my eye.
One thing I wanted to point out is, let's say you think about taking out a $2 million loan, right? And what that monthly payment might be. Your offsetting costs, your energy and your wood waste, are going to be pretty close to that payment amount. So it's almost like a rent versus buy kind of calculation. Ma'am, you had a question behind.
Yeah, I just was curious on more detailed specifics about what is the life expectancy of this modular, right, incineration unit, and what is the maintenance cost? Do they increase over time? What's the energy output, right? What is an expected cost to attach to a city grid or municipality grid to then give that power back again? We're in Missouri and Justin, Illinois, and I do know that is something that has happened with like solar panels and things like that in our area, but you know, somewhere clear, we're in the process of buying a mill, Justin, Illinois, and we've talked to and considered exactly something like this, but we're not big enough. I love your idea of collaborating with local, other regional, right? Because there are a lot of small shops in our area that we can definitely collaborate with to get the the waste product in, but we need more information about the actual details to help make it sense, especially as I'm pursuing financing right this minute,
Right.
that if I can incorporate that into what we're doing.
Some you
know,
can show a banker.
That actually
Yeah.
becomes something that's actionable for us.
I'm glad that you asked that question. So obviously that's a really deep dive. Folks, my contact information is right up there. I would be more than happy to send you the 3 example bids that equipment manufacturers have given us, along with the PDF from each one of those, and more than happy to provide an introduction to the different manufacturers. Just for clarity, I kind of am acting like the procurement manager, sourcing manager, supply chain manager for the industry. So I'm neutral. I don't take anything from the people that are selling equipment. I'm just pre-qualifying it to make it super easy for you. And eventually we'll also build a replication toolkit that we can hand out and say, here's your labs, here's what permitting looks like, here's where government tax incentives might be. That was a great question. Thank you very much.
And that's the benefit of the trade association.
Exactly.
Because you have a neutral third party doing the legwork. And then we go, yep, there you go. These people pre-qualified, see if it works for you. And if there's any feedback, love to have it.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you one more? Go ahead. It's okay.
The same question over and over again, how to solve the problem for small manufacturers. So we have a solution here for you. If you're interested, we will give you information behind it. It's virtually free, no investment needed, where we turn the waste into product.
Let's chat. I'd love to learn from you. That sounds great. Lots to learn. There's lots to learn. Great, great, great.
And there's a review, paper evaluation form. I think you've got it when you walked in. Or maybe you have it when you, yeah, you have it. Okay.
Okay.
So just a reminder, please fill that out. That's from Toby.
Great. You guys have been terrific. Let's give a hand for my... Thank you very much. You'll find me in the
Thank you,
biomass
Callie.
information booth too. Thank you.